Welcome back. Now we're going to start learning how to solve a cubic equation. And in doing so, I'm going to use some software we have here in the department. And the reason is it will go much quicker and I can make a much shorter video. You at home will have to go through and use paper and pencil to make this happen, but it's not that overbearing, I promise. So let's take a look at what we can do. So again, I'm going to minimize my face. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start a program that the department owns, and it's called Maple. And Maple is a very nice piece of software that enables us to do some really neat mathematics. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and I always use a worksheet because I typically am doing mathematics. And so I'm going to show you a couple of things. First off, I'm in math mode. And the first thing I do is I typically, at the very top of any page that I am doing, I type in the word restart. Now, that's a habit that I have because if I screw something up on this page, which I will probably do during this video, I'm not going to edit it out. I'm simply going to go back to the top of the page. And what this command tells the computer to do is to clean out the kernel and all of its memorized information so that it can begin fresh calculations. All right, so I've done a restart, didn't have to, but this is, like I say, I can go back from the beginning and do this over. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to have an expression. And an expression is something where you have an assignment statement, P, colon equals, and I'm going to type in an expression that is x shift 6, which brings me to an exponent, x cubed plus a times x raised to the second power plus b times x plus C. And what this is an expression, and I'm going to show you what happens when I hit enter. The computer is saying, okay, P has taken on this meaning. So if I now put P in this, in a command or something, it substitutes this in for it. And if you remember, that is basically my overall expression of a cubic equation. And if you notice, it did move the ax squared up front for some reason. Don't know why, don't really care. Now, let's watch the next thing I can do. Now, I'm going to show you something. P of 3. And I'm going to hit that. And notice it simply says, okay, wherever there was an X, you maybe wanted something, I don't know. The computer really doesn't have a clue what you're asking for, other than maybe you're trying to multiply through by 3 or something. P is an expression. It's not a function. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something else. I'm going to come in and I'm going to say F, and I'm going to put a shift minus, so I have an underbar X, is going to be assigned. And what I want to do is I want to assign a function. So I'm saying this is going to be a function of X, and I'm going to use a command called unapply. And I don't really know why they call it unapply, but they do. And I'm going to put P, comma, X. Now what this is stating is it's saying this expression, use this as the variable and assign it to this name. This is why when algebra we talk about the name of the function is f of x, the computer's doing the same type of logic here. And I'm going to hit enter, and notice we now have a group of symbols. It says f of x, that's the way I kind of denote it, is a function in x, and here is what its definition is. Now watch what I can do. F underbar x, open parentheses, 3, close parentheses, and I'll put a semicolon behind it, and notice it plugged in a 3 everywhere where there was an x. So you now have 3 squared is 9 times a plus 3 cubed plus 3 times b plus c. Now the reason I do that is I need to have both the expression and the function to help me do what I want to do here. So let's take a look. One of the things we know we wanted to do was to update this function, and we want to suppress the squared term. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take f and I'm going to name a new function f of y. And f of y is going to be assigned, and it's going to be assigned, actually I don't want f of y, correction, I want q because it's an expression. What I'm about to get is going to be f underbar x of, and we're going to put y minus a divided by 3. And what I'm doing is I am doing exactly what the proof of the problem said to do, which was to suppress the square term, do a variable substitution, and you can now see it. Now you're looking at that going, well, all it did was do the substitution. Yes. Now what I'm going to do is say expand, which is a command in Maple, and I can expand Q. And let's watch what happens if I expand Q. There it is. Well, you're probably looking at that wondering, well, what is all of that? Well, let me see if I can help for a moment. Well, first off, expand Q didn't get saved to anything. So I'm going to come back up here and say Q is going to be equal to expand Q. And I'm going to hit enter one more time. So now I have Q is actually now saved in the expanded form. Now watch what I'm going to do. Coefficient of Q, comma, 3, meaning what is the coefficient of the third degree term in Q? And it says we have an error, coefficient C3, which is not valid for its second argument. Oh, guess what? I have to tell it what variable to put in. So it's looking as y as the variable, and I need the third term. And I hit enter, and it says 1. So I know I have a coefficient of 1, and if we go up here and do a search, we're looking for y cubed coefficient 1. Now I can do coefficient, the expression q, use the variable y, look for the second degree, and it says, oh, that's 0. So we have successfully suppressed the square term. Coefficient of q, comma, use y as the variable, give me the linear coefficient. And there it is, the opposite of a squared over 3 plus b. And so I could write that down, and I would. I know what the coefficient is when I do the suppression. When I start with a general cubic equation and I suppress it, I now know what the coefficient on the linear term is, and it's a squared plus b. Let's take another look, and we're going to do coefficient of q, use y as the variable, and we now want the 0 degree. And there it is. That's the constant. Now remember, we're going to have to move this to the other side of the equal sign, so don't get caught off guard. I'm going to have a negative go through all of that when you looked at the proof of what we're doing. But I could write that down and put parentheses and a negative outside and tell myself this is going to be my coefficients when I actually go to solve a real cubic equation where I'm going to have to suppress my variables. All right, well, at least suppress the square term. So now, here we are, and I've walked you through this, and I'm using this software to help me kind of see how I can do this. Now, since all of this works, I can do two things. I can either go start a new worksheet, or I'm going to go back up to the top, and I'm going to go back up here, and I can now replace the A's, B's, and C's with different values if I want. And I may put different numbers in here. I could actually put, if I chose, I could put in front of the x squared, I could put a 9. In front of the b squared, I could put a negative 11 times x, and we could have a positive 5, let's say. And if I now hit enter, notice p of x has now changed. Now, I still know this is a goofy command that didn't do anything, but I can make a function out of it. Now I can do f of 3 and show you I would get a number, 80. I can also still make q, and I can still expand q, and I can look for, now, I'm noticing something. You notice how I have A's in here? I shouldn't have A's, but remember when we did this, we did 1/3 of A. A is now 9. I got to remember to put 9 right there. So I'm going to put a 9 right there instead of an A, and I'm going to hit enter. And now it looks like all numbers. Now when I expand Q, there it is. And notice I have y cubed minus 38y plus 92. And I can go down and I can find every one of my coefficients and they would match. So this is a way for me as a math person to use a new type of calculator. They've been out for several years, but this is nothing more than a calculator for math majors and engineering majors to basically go beyond just the 4 basic functions and actually be able to do some mathematics with it. So in this case, and we're going to come back in just a minute and we're going to solve a type of homework problem and what types of questions we might have. So let's take a look at this, and maybe you want to rewatch this, make sure you know what you're up to and how you would do this by hand. And we'll come back and watch another video. I hope you found this illuminating.